Welcome to Trinidad and Tobago Tour News 4 Report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barito. Let's take a look at the headlines. Secretary General of the Organization of American States presents the OAS final report on illegal drug trade. Water taxi service has been expanded to Chagaramas. And the West Indies Cricket Board and the West Indies Players Association come together for their first ever joint awards ceremony. To our top story, the violence associated with drug trafficking is one for concern and discussion, says Secretary General of the Organization of American States, Jose Miguel Insulza presented the OAS final report on the drug problem in the Americas to the heads of state during the 34th regular meeting of the Conference of Heads of Government of CARICOM at the Hilton Trinidad St. Anne's.
The report was commissioned by the heads of state and governments of the hemisphere in the framework of the 6th Summit of the Americas, held in April 2012. Jose Insulza noted that there was more violence associated with the trading of drugs, the transport and selling. Mr. Insulza pointed out that in 2010, a lot of drugs were confiscated, in that half of the cocaine that was produced was confiscated, but the drug trade continued in a lucrative fashion. He said the treatment of drug users as opposed to sending them to jail was a measure that the OAS supports. Mr. Insulza said that 1/3 of the people who are in jail in the Americas are there for drug-related offenses, yet people continue to be recruited in the drug trade.
We have been working on this problem of drugs for 40 years, as I just said to the heads. A lot of drug has been confiscated. If you take 2010, the year 2010, for example, half the cocaine that was produced was confiscated. But the drug trade continued, and the earnings, the gains of the drug trade continue to be very, very, very high. And in spite of the fact that we have in jail, 1/3 of the people who are in jail in the Americas is there for drug-related offenses, but people continue to be recruited for the drug trade.
The drug problem, he says, exists in all countries, but the issues are different to each, whereby some countries are not affected by the use of drugs. He noted that in Chile, the use of drugs is very high, but the violence level was low. Mr. Insulza says that sending a person to jail for drug use can worsen the situation, and sometimes they come out of jail much worse than they were before.
This is the result of the report, and I would say that in general it has been very covered by the media, and I would allow me to say also quite successfully. I should say also that the Assembly agreed to continue on this work, and we want to have some regional meetings to discuss the report now at the regional level, because one of our findings is that the drug problem exists in all the Americas, but the big issues are different in each country.
Institutions, he said, must be strengthened and can aid in the drug fight.
In Central America, to mention a very crucial point, only 3% of the drug that's consumed, that's used in the Americas is used in Central America, but the crime levels are very high. In other countries, mine, for example, Chile is one, the use of drugs is very high, and the violence associated with it is very low, and we want to find out why.
According to the drug report, which can be viewed on the OAS website, decriminalization can dramatically change the number of arrests for drug law violations, avoiding substantial burdens on those arrested. Decriminalization includes non-criminal penalties such as fines, or interventions designed to dissuade users from continuing to consume illicit drugs. The report also stated that illegal arms trafficking has become one of the main problems for citizen security in the region. Joseph Lopez, News 4.
Regional leaders at the 34th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting encouraged their peers to strengthen the integration process for the betterment of the region. During the opening ceremony, the message was clear, an emphasis on improving the unity among all members.
Grappling with the issue of crime, transportation within the region, and achieving goals set out in past meetings were just some of the issues raised during the opening of the 34th CARICOM Summit. The meeting, which brought regional heads together in Trinidad and Tobago, opened officially with several Caribbean heads making contributions and urging their peers to continue banding together and bringing to realization a better Caribbean community for all. Bahamian Prime Minister Perry Christie was one leader calling for the region to counteract the uprise in criminal activity across the region.
We have a responsibility to continue to recognize why we are different and why we are special in this part of the world, and why we must not flinch in the face of those who would wish to destroy the reputation of our country by criminal conduct. That we must always lift it to the highest level of priority amongst ourselves, with a view of ensuring that there is no compromise in our efforts to seek the necessary resources and levels of cooperation to minimize the impact, disastrous impact of crime on our countries.
CARICOM Chairman and Prime Minister Kamla Prasad Bisesa highlighted the region's continuous battle against crime as a region, and she reminded leaders of the recent spearheading of the fight against small arms and ammunition at the international front.
In the realm of security, which has become our fourth pillar, given the threat which crime and violence pose to the foundation of our societies and the region's development, again, that is an area in which our coming together will bring us success. And as conference chairperson, I also remain hopeful that our continued dialogue and collaboration on regional security would bring fresh initiatives and perspectives in fighting crime and the drug trade. Security threats in our region include, but are not limited to, the infiltration of our very porous borders by organized criminals, the proliferation of small arms, the increase in drug and human trafficking, money laundering, and corruption at ports of entry. And so we must develop the regional mechanisms to combat the multiple threats to security in our hemisphere and in our region. Our people must be safe and feel free.
Trinidad and Tobago's closest Caribbean neighbor, Grenadian Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell, who returned in what he described as a 5-year sabbatical, says finding ways in bringing the region closer was critical. He says by addressing the ease of movements within the region can assist in the building of economies in the Caribbean.
As governments, my dear brothers and sisters, the time has come also for us to look at our approach to taxation and the travel tickets. We must appreciate that in most instances, the taxes are so much more than the basic cost of tickets, thus driving up the cost of intra-regional travel. We know and we understand that there is the internal fear that by doing so, we'll reduce the badly needed income to our cash-strapped treasuries and airports authority. But I believe we must firmly come to understand that if we find ways to get more people traveling around the region, we will in the end increase revenue, even with lower fees because of the increased volume. The creation of an environment that will encourage private sector investment and innovation. The issue of fuel subsidies, as well as the issue of government subventions. We have heard the complaints that our governments are eager to give subventions to international carriers, but not easily to our own. It is a fair comment that we must also address that in seeking to solve that serious issue of transportation.
The CARICOM meeting will continue until Saturday, when it is expected that newly elected Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will meet with the CARICOM leaders. Kimberly Calawan, News 4.
When we come back, what a taxi to Shagaramas. Stay with us.
Hello, ever thought of cutting your TSTC business landline costs? It's simply a smart choice to make, only from Blink. One fixed monthly rate for bundled local minutes, bundled mobile minutes, bundled international minutes, and many free calling features. All wrapped up to save you a bundle. Smart choice, only from Blink. A bundle of joy.
The water taxi service has been expanded and will now facilitate persons living and working in West Trinidad. The decision was taken after long deliberations and is aimed at easing the traffic congestion heading to Chaguaramas.
The Chaguaramas Development Authority and the National Infrastructure Development Company Limited have partnered to ease the traffic flow into the Chaguaramas Peninsula. On Saturday, July 6th, the water taxi service route from Port of Spain to Chaguaramas will be launched. The inaugural sailing commences at 10 a.m. with a formal ceremony on board the water taxi, which will dock at La Soufrière. The service, which is expected to be on weekends in the first instance and then expand into daily sailings, is an initiative of the CDA as it vigorously pursues its mandate to become the premier provider of the ultimate customer experience. A release from the Ministry of Planning and Sustainable Development stated that the current developmental thrust within the Chaguaramas Peninsula and offshore islands has resulted in much output expansion in education, training, related employment, apprenticeship programs, as well as substantial foreign and local investment. As such, the ministry believes these outputs call for a solid transportation network resulting from an increased traffic flow in visitor and worker population into the peninsula. At present, the cost of the service stands at $15, the same as for customers accessing the Port of Spain to San Fernando route, which is expected to operate undisturbed by the latest development. For sailing times and other related information, one can visit NIDCO's website at www.nidco.co.tt. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
CARICOM Secretary General Erwin LaRocque, addressing the 34th regular meeting of CARICOM heads of government, says the region can boast of being the longest surviving integration alliance among developing countries. His comments came as he welcomed the leaders to the opening of the conference.
CARICOM Secretary General Erwin LaRocque says the region has much to celebrate even as it moves into the future. His message to the leaders focused on gearing up the heads of government toward greater cooperation among themselves and keeping in mind the CARICOM's growing population. Speaking at the opening ceremony, he noted that a strategic plan has been outlined for strengthening the integration process, soon to be implemented.
A key element of this process is a 5-year strategic plan for the community, the first in its existence. Relevance, efficiency, effectiveness, flexibility, responsiveness, innovation, and creativity, all aimed at providing improved service to our people, is the goal of this reform process. The people-centered approach to development is the driver of the change that we are striving to provide. It is at the heart of our integration arrangements, and our agenda item at this meeting on treatment of persons with disabilities demonstrates our continued concern at the highest level for the welfare of our citizens.
He attributed the very existence of Caribbean agencies as proof of the region's strength, as well as the coming of the Caribbean Court of Justice as a final accolade for its members.
Having tasted the fruits of CARIFTA, such as the Caribbean Development Bank, the Caribbean Examinations Council, and the Caribbean Broadcasting Union, our leaders, in the words of the preamble of the Georgetown Accord, were encouraged to commit to ever-widening programs of functional cooperation and common services. To give certainty to the interpretation of the provisions of the revised treaty, the Caribbean Court of Justice has been established as a court with exclusive and compulsory treaty jurisdiction. It also has been embraced as a final court of appeal by 3 member states thus far. There are positive signals that soon we may welcome at least 2 more countries to the appellate jurisdiction of the court.
Ambassador LaRocque called on the region's leaders to unite as one front in order to address the economic constraints in the region.
Today, with the introduction of the CARICOM single market in 2006, interregional trade has grown from approximately $600 million in 1990 to more than $3 billion in 2012, moving from 10% of total trade to 15% of total trade. Research has shown that this trade can be doubled if we address certain constraints. We need to harmonize our procedures and provide greater certainty to the trade regime. This is critical, for example, to trade in agriculture, including agro-processing.
CARICOM is expected to be represented during the 2014 UN meeting on small island developing states to be held in Samoa. Recognizing the need for small island nations to have its voice heard at the international level, the Secretary General addressed CARICOM's detractors by highlighting the perseverance of the community despite the numerous hurdles faced since its formation.
For those who question the relevance of CARICOM, I say, where would we be as a people? Where would our youth be if there were no Caribbean community? A group of disparate countries seeking to make their own way in a world incredibly hostile to small and microstates. Integration of the Caribbean community is no esoteric ideal, but a hard-headed reality. The same reality that drove the founding fathers to sign that treaty 40 years ago continues to impel us today.
Ambassador Owen LaRocque is a national of Dominica and is the 7th Secretary General of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM. Kimberly Ram-Calawan, News 4.
WICB WEPA Awards in our sport report right after this.
It's not always about how fast we can get there. Sometimes what's more important is how much we can achieve, how high we can climb, or how far we can go. And though our destinations may differ, we are all bound by a common element. We are all interested in going further, in being better. And as we strive to achieve even higher standards than the ones we've already set, it is important to recognize that we are the sole determinant of our own success. That all we need is already here, at home. That world class and our class are one and the same. That we are the sole supplier of what drives us. Responsible for fueling our own desires, we are the ones that lift ourselves. How far we go is up to us. NP. For all life's journeys.
The West Indies Cricket Board and the West Indies Players Association held their first ever joint awards ceremony at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Port of Spain. Trinidadian Sunil Narayan and Jamaican Marlon Samuels both left the ceremony with 2 awards. Gregory Maberni has the report.
West Indies cricketers forgot about picking up the bat and ball and instead picked up awards at the first joint awards ceremony hosted by the West Indies Cricket Board and the West Indies Players Association. A total of 14 awards were won, including the inaugural WEPA Lifetime Achievement Award. This award was given to former Barbadian left-arm spinner Mr. Winston Reid. Reid had a 15-year career from 1985 to 1999, during which he played 53 first-class matches, taking a total of 205 wickets, including a 10-wicket haul on one occasion. Reid was a member of the Barbados LOC for the 2007 ICC Cricket World Cup and is currently a member of the Kensington Oval management staff. The other award winners include the Barbadian Under-19 team, which won the Under-19 Team of the Year award. They were represented at the awards by their senior compatriot, Tino Best. Young Trinidadian cricketer Jeremy Salazano took home the Regional Under-19 Player of the Year award for his 542 runs last year, including 2 centuries, 3 half-centuries, and a high score of 160 not out. Jamaica won the award for First Class Team of the Year, Chris Gale accepting the award on behalf of his teammates. Trinidadian bowler Sunil Narayan won First Class Limited Overs Player of the Year award. World number 1 T20 bowler Sunil Narayan was also given the West Indies T20 Player of the Year award for his 16 international T20 wickets and his best figures of 4 for 12. Stephanie Taylor won the West Indies Female Player of the Year award. Marlon Samuels took home the award for the one-day format of the game, scoring 482 runs last year with 2 centuries and a high score of 126. Shiv Chandapal was the player deemed the best in the longer test format of the game. Chandapal fell just 13 runs short of 1,000 runs last year. He managed a best of 203 not out and scored 3 centuries and 5 half-centuries. The coveted overall West Indies Cricketer of the Year award was a tough one, with Marlon Samuels, Chris Gayle, Sunil Narine and Darren Sammy all nominated. However, it was Marlon Samuels who reigned supreme, coming away as the best player in the West Indies last year. The final presentation of the night was made to the West Indies team, who won the last ICC T20 World Cup. The team, led by their captain at the time, Darren Sammy, received their championship rings. WIPA President Wavell Hines says the award ceremony, coupled with the performance of the West Indies players, is evidence that West Indies cricket is on the rise once again.
There's growth in the team. I see a test team that won 6 games on the trot. I see Shivnarine Chandapal holding the #1 test position for a long period. Batsman, that is. I see Sunil Narine being elevated to the #1 ODI bowler. I see Marlon Samuels being inducted in the Willesden Hall of Fame, which is quite special, and congratulations to Marlon on that. And I see a new WIPA executive that spreads around the Caribbean.
The West Indies continue to battle in their Tri-Nation series against India and Sri Lanka, with 1 game left against Sri Lanka on Sunday before the finals next week Thursday. Gregory McBurney, News 4.
News 4 continues after the break. Stay with us.
Never leave items like MP3 players, portable DVD players, laptops and briefcases on view inside your vehicle. It is an open invitation for a thief. Don't leave them on show. If you cannot take them with you, place them in the trunk of your car. Remember, crime prevention is everyone's business. A message from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service.
The Dog Control Bill 2013 is now one step closer to being made law. Having been passed in the lower house, it will now go before the Senate.
The Dog Control Bill 2013 has been passed in the House of Representatives. On Wednesday, the debate on the bill ended in the lower house with 36 members voting for, 1 against, and no abstentions. The act, which requires a special 3/5 majority, provides for the control of dogs and seeks to regulate the manner in which certain breeds of dogs are kept by their owners or keepers. It also repeals the Dangerous Dogs Act 2000. The bill was introduced by Attorney General Anand Ramlogan on May 20th. Under this new piece of legislation, dogs in Trinidad and Tobago will be placed in one of 2 categories. Class A speaks to dogs deemed dangerous, while all other dogs will fall into Class B. Owners or keepers of dogs will be subject to fines and imprisonment if their dogs injure or kill a person without reasonable cause. The Dog Control Bill 2013, which has been welcomed by many, will now move to the Senate to be debated next Tuesday. Nikolai Edwards, News 4.
Well, that's how we wrap up this edition of our News 4 report, a product of the Government Information Services Limited and the Ministry of Communications. I'm Nicola Barreto. Thank you for joining us.